go back to what I was saying. The intent of this webinar that Carole and I put together over the last week or so was to come up with some ideas for membership building. What we found was that the topic of effective use of social media, that there's really so much material involved that there's probably enough for several sessions. So what we did was we pared it down. So I'm just going to move along to the next slide. There is my mind went blank here. Just give you an idea of what we planned on covering in this very quickly. We wanted to explore how marketing and advertising relate to the public relations, the VP public relations role. And then we want to take a look at so-called traditional methods of marketing Toastmasters Club membership. And Carole's touched on that a little bit. I had taken a different approach. I will tell you at this juncture is that there is a document called speaker's notes that go with this webinar, and it's a full version before we remove stuff out of it. So there's quite a bit of stuff quite a bit of material on the speaker's notes that probably will not be covered in this webinar. So it explores it to quite a bit more depth. So that should be available to you by the time this is over. It's there. Now, I just wanted to comment on the traditional methods of marketing Toastmasters Club before I go on to the next objective that we hope to meet. Was that a couple of years ago I was doing online remote training, and I made the assumption that traditional methods were what Toastmasters International used to put in their leadership manuals. The club officers each had their own manual a few years back, and they expanded upon the roles. Now it's all amalgamated into one manual. So they had different initiatives in there, but like having speaking in a library, speaking in a coffee shop, holding a meeting somewhere outside in the community, contacting newspapers, publicizing your events, making friends with a local reporter, those kind of things is traditional. And the idea was that I was going to branch into new methods. But what I realized was that what I consider traditional, many of the VP public relations that come on board, they're not traditional to them because they're brand new. So we're not going to go into a lot of details on what I call the so-called traditional. They are covered in the speaker's notes, and Carole's put a note there with PDF file, and I will share that at the end. I don't really want you getting into the speaker's notes now because it tends to take away with what I have to say. We also want to focus on club branding and strategies and tie it in with Toastmasters International's overall branding. And we want to take a look at club websites and how they work hand in hand with social media. So that's an awful lot to cover in the short time that we have. We'll see how far we get. You want to explore specific social media programs, what works, what doesn't. We're only going to be covering that just on the little bit side because we pulled that one. It is covered in depth, as I say, in the speaker's notes. And it's enough for another session on its own. Then the whole idea of what we're going to be for the session, we're going to explore some specific actions that you can do to maximize your social media usage. So the number one, that's a question here, you can type an answer in here. The number one strategy to get someone to join Toastmasters, what do you think it is? So if you just want to type it in here. Brad says ask. Okay, that's close. Word of mouth from Edward. Any other ideas? This is mine. This isn't in writing, and you're convince them to visit. I think you're covering them from all different angles. It's not rocket science. Invite them to a meeting and then ask them to join. It's as simple as that. It's easy to be thinking about social media, spending all your time online, but what has been tried and true over, 90 years old in Toastmasters, invite somebody out, tell them to visit, come on out. Once they see what the meeting's like, we talked about the guest packages and that. The other side of it is once they're there, show them a good time and ask them to join. As simple as that. If that works, promise some food. Yeah, that's a good one. Or lots of free coffee. That's another one too. I want to challenge your thinking a little bit. A few years back, I was president of my club, and you'll hear it often enough here. It's in District 21, it's Toastmasters, or sorry, it's Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. I was the president of the club, and we take the summer off. Summer in my part of the world is June, July, and August, and early September. We took July and August off. We quit with a healthy 20 members. When we came back in September, we didn't meet for the summer. When we came back in September, there were only 6 members. So we had to rebuild the club. So as the president, I basically took over all the executive roles because I only had 6 members, and I created a marketing plan, and I started thinking like a business. I operate my own business, so I've got an idea what the business is like. And we have a president who's your CEO. You've got a VP Public Relations who's your marketing director. You've got membership. All the different roles take on they have a business application. So that's what we're going to be looking at is keeping that in mind. Now, this slide here is also in the notes, so I'm not going to go into a lot of the speaker's notes. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but I think it's interesting to know that from a traditional perspective, marketing, anything you do for marketing you can look at it from 2 different ways. One is advertising and one is public relations. Now, if you very quickly look down on the advertising side of things, it involves money. You got to pay for it. It's expensive. You pay for what it costs you. It's guaranteed that they're going to place it for a certain amount of times. You've got radio, you've got traditional media for like print, newspaper, magazine, you've got television. You're buying something. Most Toastmaster clubs that I'm familiar with don't have a budget to do that. On the other hand, there's public relations. You create a public relations campaign, you put it out there, you send media releases or media advisories to your local favorite reporter or all the media that you can of something that's interesting. You know, we're promoting Toastmasters, so perhaps you've got an open house. Once upon a time, that was interesting that they would do something about it. Now it's more challenging because they're bombarded with news stories and they have to decide what's important. You could think you could have a really important news story and you could get bumped by the local news station putting on a story about a cat stuck in a tree. With public relations, you've got no guarantee what the press is going to do with it, or the media. However, the slide, while it's up to date, I think there's something missing. I think there's a combination that you can do. Many marketers, professional marketers, they've taken a traditional marketing course, have learned how to do advertising and they've learned how to do public relations. But now to stay competitive with other companies, local and abroad, they have to incorporate social media. So many of them now have become social media experts. As I know an awful lot of social media gurus, gods or goddesses. That's what they call themselves. And they can do everything you want for social media, but it'll cost you. So I think there's a way for us as Toastmasters to incorporate social media for little cost. We're doing some promoting and advertising, but it doesn't cost us any money or very little bit of money. And we can do public relations. I've had some of my Facebook posts picked up by local press. So I think there's advantage to that. So we'll see where it develops from here. So when I talk about the new marketing strategies, I look at online social media platforms. So nowadays they're well within the reach or the ability of a Toastmaster club to do. And what it allows you to do, it's it allows you to make a larger reach or presence than your club membership and your local club members. The internet is a great equalizer and allows you to do that. So the whole purpose of this presentation is based on one question, and I'm not going to ask you what it is. Should you put time and effort into social media initiatives to attract new members to your Toastmasters Club? You would think it's an answer yes or no, but there's an answer that I learned from leadership lessons a long time ago. For any hard, difficult question, the answer is it depends. You have to consider the factors for your particular situation. Do you have the time, assuming you are the person that's going to be taking over control or ownership of any of the social media, do you have the time to devote to it? Because you could literally be putting in hours a day, many hours a week. So if you have the time to do it, then you have to think, is there a return on investment? You can learn how to do things, but should you do it? Could your time be spent better focusing on the traditional methods? You know, there's people from around the world on this webinar. I know what works in my geographical region, this part of the world, this part of the country, but I can't make the assumption that social media works in other parts of the country. I know, for example, that in my District 21, which was the province of British Columbia, we used to be one of the largest districts before we divided, we had some rural communities that while Twitter might work in a larger city, because there's a lot of people, in the smaller communities, Twitter wouldn't work because nobody was on. So when you're deciding whether you're going to dig into social media, you have to decide, will there be people on it? Now, before I go on to the next slide, I'm taking a look at a lot of questions here on my left-hand side. Are we up to date on questions here, or any answers that are outstanding, Carole?
Well, what Lena is saying is that in her university club, the use of social media is absolutely a must. So I'm thinking, does the answer to your question also depend on the demographics of the club and the type of club?
I think it would in that club. I'm not familiar with, actually she's in the same district as me, but I'm not familiar with her club. I have spoken to university students, and it's challenging. I've definitely had problems with the age barrier. But what you'll see is lots of iPhones, smartphones, and fingers flashing back and forth. The old days, we used to think that was rude behavior. Nowadays, what we're finding is that the participant in the audience could be tweeting the message that you said. They're sharing live, so it's a different way of thinking. So yes, they breathe social media. So it depends. So I actually, when I thought about this, developing the Twitter, I never thought of it in the student application and the younger one, but definitely. So any other outstanding questions from there that we missed, Carole?
I'm just checking what Edward's saying, of course, is that university students and that particular age bracket will live and breathe with social media. So my answer there was that if we don't use it, then we are losing that particular slice of the market.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So yeah, so it depends. So I'm in agreement from my perspective on this presentation that there is value to it. And the other it depends is that if you have the time and the inclination, it's a good hobby. You really have to get into it. It's a good hobby to learn. In Toastmasters, we think communication and leadership, but I have learned so many skills that have nothing to do with either of those ones. And, I've got about 30 websites. I own about 40 domains, online presentations and video. That all developed from Toastmasters. So becoming experienced or educated in social media is just another thing that you're exposed to. What I want to take a look next with this slide you should be seeing is about branding. I'm going to start off with a larger picture. In the last probably about 3 or 4 years now, it's lost track. Toastmasters International has rebranded. Everybody will recognize it. You'll recognize several elements there. You'll recognize the colors. The main colors that they're using, of course, are the burgundy, the blue, the white, and there's a gold color in there. So there's about 4 or 5 colors that they use. And what they do is they use that branding colors on every single thing that they do. Everything, piece of paper they release, every brochure, every contact they put out has that on there. Well, that's all available to you as part of your, to be able to have social media. One of the elements of having a successful social media presence is that you've got a consistent branding from all of your social media, as well as your website, as well as any documents that you produce in-house. Like if you're including documents in your guest package to your guests, your branding should be consistent across everything. This screenshot here that you're seeing is the branding that's available. The branding products or resources that are available at Toastmasters International. I didn't put the URL on there because it's a little confusing, but all you have to do is look for brand portal at Toastmasters International. Some of the things that I really liked here was under the professional images. They provide you with pictures of, I call them happy smiling Toastmasters. And you can crop them, you can reuse them, they're royalty free. You can add them to any of your Toastmaster brochures or anything that you do, any of your publications. And I've used them quite a bit as a district webmaster on my own club website and different things. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. Now, when I talked a little bit earlier about having to rebuild my club, this was the year before Toastmasters did the rebranding. So we were on the old style that really didn't have any focus or anything. So some of the things that I incorporated, there's 3 different elements that I wanted to point out on here. One, our club is called Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. It's obviously by the sign. So I created this sign. We started adding it to all of our handouts, and we added it to the website that we had at the time. The flying part obviously is the airplane. It's a little bit of a clip art. We fit in every so often. So we fit that in across all the platforms that we promote our club. Another big thing is coming up with a tagline. Now, I would encourage all clubs to come up with a tagline. As we all know, Toastmasters International tagline, where leaders are made. But there's nothing to say that you can't develop your own club Toastmaster tagline. One thing it does, it's helped people remember. We promote ours. We have Flying Solo Toastmasters, flying solo, but not alone. And there's a hidden message behind that, in that our club, Flying Solo, originally started off 15 years ago as a singles club. So people were joining to meet, have a date. They'd have a date, and we met in a pub at the time. So at the beginning, the tagline was the club in the pub. And then we moved out of the pub because the club was getting too big. The tagline became, you can take the club out of the pub, but you can't take the pub out of the club. Well, we were focusing on the party side of Toastmasters, the social side of things. When the club evolved, we wanted to target market more of the business professionals. So we totally ruled out the singles club, and these 3 elements that I use here, I factor them in. It was several years ago before the branding, but I still tie them in here. So what you're seeing here is just an example of, I think I'm going to be going to a live session here in a minute, but these are 2 examples of headers. The top header is a header on the website that I've created for the public. The bottom one is a website for most of you are probably familiar with, and that's the free host toast one. Years ago, I used to promote everybody having a club website. Then along came the club host, and I was promoting, saying, I think you should have 2 websites. I think you should have one that's public, and I think you should have one that's members. Well, the advantage to the free host toast one is that it's available for public and clubs, easily indexed, And there are other versions of free ones that makes it easier for a webmaster to look after that doesn't have web skills. So I'm going to show, where am I? Sec here. Okay, for social media, you need to come up with a strategy. 2 columns here. The first one, your strategy needs to be informational, it needs to be entertaining, it needs to be educational. These are 3, you've probably heard them before, because these are the main qualities of any presentation that we give as a Toastmaster. There has to be a purpose for it. We're either providing somebody with information, we're entertaining them, we're educating them. One thing that I don't see on there might be a call for action. So I believe your strategy needs to have a purpose. It needs to, maybe it's to call for action, just get people to come up to your club. So the B column, the other side, is that the content that you plan on posting has to be thought-provoking. There's got to be a reason for it. People want, people see it, and if it's stupid, one of the problems with Facebook right now is there's a lot of, I call it fluff that's being shared. It serves no purpose. So if you're having a Toastmaster strategy, there has to be purpose behind what you do. Your content that you post should be engaging. It should grab people's attention. People should be able to respond to it. We're interactive with to this webinar somewhat, and we've got a text chat, so it's interactive. Timely, the content that you post shouldn't be from something you pulled out a couple of years ago and has no relevance to now. Now the final one, addictive, I don't think you're going to find that anywhere, and addictive certainly isn't a good term. However, social media is very addictive to many people. There's a lot of us that check our email every 5 minutes because we don't want to miss anything. We're up on, we want to make sure everything's there. When people post to they answer to a post or post to Facebook or anything else, they'll check quite often to find out if anybody's responded to it, because we're getting to the point where we expect instant response. So you want it to be addictive in the sense that people are interested in what you have to say. Now, social media presence that people probably don't think about is email. Your email is actually a form of social media. What I'm showing you here, I'm not trying to promote, well, I am trying to promote myself because I do that all the time. But what I would encourage you to do, if you're a club officer, is to encourage all of your other fellow club officers to create a signature file in whatever email program that you use. I use Outlook, so I can do it there. The idea is that you want to promote your name, your title, your role at the club. So in here, I put the tagline in. I'm promoting myself in here because I've got multiple businesses on the go. But if I send a message out related to Toastmasters, people will go to the website and check it out. So this is another form to draw attention to your club. I see that I need to update this one because it has District 21 Toastmasters as a banner, but it really should say Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. So that's something that I'm going to look at. When I talk about email, another aspect of email is when a guest visits your club, you really should be trying to capture that email address from them. In a marketing context, email of somebody is like gold. It helps you create a list that you can follow up. You can create mail out a newsletter to people that have attended your club. People come to your club, maybe it's not the right time to join, but if you can keep them in the communication loop, maybe 6 months down the road, maybe a year down the road, maybe they'll want to join at that point. So if you can create a mail out list, and you can, I don't have it in the speaker's notes or here, but something to check out is something called MailChimp, and I believe it's available worldwide. You can have up to 2,000 members on it, I believe, and send out 12,000 messages a month, and that's all free.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Ray, you must have seen the comment, or maybe you and Brad are of like minds, that Brad's talking about the use of MailChimp mail service, and he says that his microphone is working now. So would it be a good point to stop and get Brad to talk about MailChimp?
Yeah, sure. I'll just...
Can everyone hear me? Is my mic working properly now?
Yep.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Brad.
All righty. We had a club that was an officers-only club, so the member potential was a limited pool. And we would use MailChimp to send out newsletters announcing the next topic for the club. Now, this club had a single topic for each meeting. It was more of a deep dive. And the newsletter would include a photo of the person who was giving the presentation and a very brief write-up. And the call to action was the meeting location and directions links. And we had a pretty good response depending on the topic. If it was more of a TLI topic, there was not much of a response, but if it was a personal improvement or how to revitalize your club, then we had a very good response. So it really is a matter of giving the teeming masses what they want.
Yeah, I find I use MailChimp for a personal newsletter that I send out weekly to 550 people. The advantage of MailChimp, one, is free. Constant Contact was costing me $40 Canadian a month. But the other advantage is you can see who has opened up your messages. What I'd recommend with a program like MailChimp is that you also cross-promote everything. So you have a link on your website saying sign up for our newsletter. You have it on Facebook every so often. Find up for our newsletter. You have it on Facebook. Check out our latest newsletter. So that's all cross, and share with your friends. So definitely email is something that a lot of people have gotten afraid of it in Canada because we had some new law. It's called CASL, Canadian Anti-Spam Law. And it made a lot of people paranoid about sending messages out. But if it's for a purpose, they've identified that they're willing to get a message from you. You can build your mailing list, and if they don't like it, they can ask to be taken off of it. You may have somebody that seems eager, only to find out that they've joined another club. Well, perhaps they want to stay on for the information. Perhaps they want to move off. So we're going to talk about Facebook a little bit. Mindful of the time here, just going by very quickly. The reason I have this picture here is that the concept is that other than on your Facebook page, you want to put a button of some sort on your web page, on your club web page, any material that you send out, find us on Facebook. Because what I find is that club websites tend to be static. Once that they're developed, there's not often a lot of content. There's not a lot of content. There's no reason for people to go and check it out. Facebook, on the other hand, provides you opportunity to be dynamic. It can be changed hourly, new content all the time. It shows that your club is dynamic. You want to show us many opportunities of happy, smiling Toastmasters that when a guest visits, they say, I think I want to join that club. So that's the intent of this slide here, is for you to think about. We're going to focus. Actually, I want to go back a little bit because I want to go into screen sharing right now. If I can do this properly, if this works properly, you should be seeing.
Don't forget, it's the Firefox browser.
Yep, I did it right. I think I did it right.
Brilliant. Yeah, we see it now.
Okay,
right.
you should be seeing. Okay, you should be seeing my club for Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. I'm using it as an example. We're in our summer session. There's so many elements here. The intent of this is just to get you thinking about things. It's not a matter of showing you the how to do things. What you see on, do you see a mouse moving? Is that?
Yeah, we're seeing it all. Yeah, we do.
You see my mouse?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you see the elements that I talked about. I put on the Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. We've got the airplane. We've got our website address here. I'm going to be changing this in another week because, well, I have to change it soon because our next meeting is September 8th and we're into our regular schedule. What I missed doing on this is I didn't put in the phone number. So there's some other elements in here that are really important. This, where it says contact us, this is a very important, one of the more important buttons on Facebook, and it's your call to action button. It gives you about 6 different choices. Now for Toastmasters, there's only 2 of them that are really of any value to us. One is the contact us, and it opens up an email or access to your website. So you want to get them to the website. The other one is they could click on a video at this point. So perhaps you have a video that introduces people to your club. We have one but I'm not using it as the contact us because I've used it elsewhere. This is something I've personally gone through about 100 different websites, 100 different Facebook pages, all in District 21. Now, statistically, we have about 160 clubs in District 21. 63 of them have websites, Facebook pages. Most of them are not maximized properly. So one of your most important buttons is this About button. Most clubs do not fill this area out. So what it's opened up is, I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but I do want to show you there's important things in here. If you set your Facebook page up in the right category, companies and organizations, it opens up a lot more of these fields that you can fill in. Some of the other categories are restrictive. And I see Facebook pages, club Facebook pages, that only have 2 or 3 items that are open. So the information, you've got partway down, you've got a short description. You've only got room for something like 150 characters. But under the long description, you can put in some 30,000 characters. So you can, I'll just expand upon this. So you can, the value of this is that search engines will index this. So everything that you should put in here should be almost a duplication of information, promotional material that you've created elsewhere. If it's on your website or somewhere else, your material should be in here. Because what happens is you may have people that go to your Facebook page that you're never going to get to your club page. So this is a second opportunity to give them that information. If they go to your club page, good, you may find some different information, but I find very few clubs actually fill that section out. So that's the main point I want to go in there, because not all search engines index Facebook. They usually index the profile. Google will give a longer description of it. And
Right.
Yep.
Can I ask a question at this point? This is Carol. Do you also have a Facebook group for Kelowna Toastmasters?
No. Let me just take
Okay.
you to another. So I can.
It's just that there was a question asked before
Okay.
by Edward about what kind of member involvement do you
Okay.
use in Facebook?
Okay. This page you should be seeing. You should be seeing a picture of the dog right now. Okay. What I would encourage you not to use a group. A group is restrictive. People have to ask to join it. If you have a large number of members, we have a Facebook group for our District 21, and we have some 850 members, and they have to ask to join it. So I've approved a lot of them. I look to see if there's any connection to Toastmasters. Otherwise, it could be somebody spamming. But what happens is those aren't indexed. The search engines do not pick them up, and there's one extra step. What happens with a Facebook page, if you create a Facebook page for your club, anybody can see it online. They don't have to be a member of, well, Toastmasters. They don't have to be a member of Facebook either. The search engines pick it up. It's far more versatile. So it's not showing up in this picture, but we've had the page for a couple of years. I've only started working on it extensively for the last little while. We have 77 likes. Most of our members are on, and they're participating in it. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but we're not using it. I'm not using it as communication. I don't think private communication should be on here. But the point I wanted to make with this one is that there are different types of content that you can post. This particular one was one that I created to draw attention to the fact that we're having a meeting upcoming. So it says 337 people reached. Now that doesn't mean that 337 people saw it. It just means it showed up on their timelines. So one of the things that I did is like up in the very top where my arrow is, you see there's Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. One of the things I encourage people to do is to take their Facebook page from passive to active. So what you can do is you can do a search and find all business organizations in your local geographical region and either ask to join them or ask to like them. So I've created a spreadsheet, a database of some 20 or so local business groups, networking groups, Chamber of Commerce, groups that would be interested in what we offer at Toastmasters. So when I create an ad like this, advising of a meeting, what I do is I share it on those different lines or those different Facebook pages. So that's how the reach is there. That's not just on our page. So that means that people see it there, and some of them will check it out on the club website. One of the things, I thought there was a slide that I might have pulled it, is that from a marketing perspective, they say nowadays you have to touch your customers 7 to 11 times. Now that doesn't mean you actually reach out and grab them, because of course that'll get you in trouble, but a touch point is wherever somebody sees your name. So if there are people that are going to these various local Facebook pages and they see a note by Flying Solo Toastmasters, they may see that. They may see it, 5, 6 times over the year, and they file it away. And then one day, I think I better do something about. I got a speech coming up. Maybe I should check. What was the name of the Toastmaster Club? Maybe I should check that out. So that's the idea. Is I send these out.
Rae, I just wanted to advise you that we have 3 minutes before the end of our time online today.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. Yeah, I can speed up here quickly. One of the things what you're seeing here is one of the things that you can do is you can also promote videos that you've produced at the club. This is a video that I produced. It's a speech that my wife did a couple of weeks ago, and we loaded it up here. So if you were to click on it, it would load up. But what I found out was that this is on YouTube, but Facebook also allows you to produce videos that you don't have to put on Facebook. You can upload them from your smartphone. That's a simple matter of creating a 5 to 7 minute speech, videoing it on your smartphone and uploading it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can do a little bit of post editing after the fact, but it's a great way to get people thinking about how Toastmasters works. I won't talk about that one. Some of the other things that I did was for content. I collected, as an example, to make an effective speech, you must have something to say. I call this an educational moment. And I've created some 150 of them, and I created 150 of these graphics. I pre-scheduled them so that they come up several times a day, so that there's always content going up on an ongoing basis. And then I factor in live content throughout the day if I'm available. You can find things like this. Every time I read a book, I have a voice recorder beside me. If there's a sentence that applies to speaking, I just make note of it and I type it in. This is very quickly as our, not feeling very, okay, that's not working out very well, but that's our Flying Solo Toastmaster page. One last thing I wanted to talk about social media is that it's relatively easy now to create your your own club YouTube channel. So if you're going to be taking videos at your clubs, upload them to your own channel, get subscribers, get people. You'll be able to promote it on your Facebook page, you promote it on your Twitter, you cross-promote everything. There's about, it's about a dozen or so. They tend to be mostly my wife and I at this point because we're the one doing the video. But something else I've added in here is you can create playlists, and 2 playlists that I've created is I'm collecting a library of presentation skills. Like if somebody talked about, there's a lot of video training or looking for video training, just check out presentation skills on YouTube. You can develop your own YouTube channel. That's a great way to raise awareness for your club. I'm also creating a database of the winning speeches from the world champion of public speaking. So that's another thing that I'm hoping to attract people. I heard a bell there.
Yep. And if you can come back to the slides and wrap up now, that would be awesome.
I'm on my way there now. Yeah, as we said, when we went through this, we found that there was an awful lot of material. Everything is covered in the speaker's notes because we didn't know where we were going to go for here. Yeah, so basically I covered quicker than I wanted to, but as I say, one of the things we're looking at is, this is the first of, in a conversation with Carole, I said to her that there's enough for content for 5 or 6 different webinars focusing on individual subjects. So we're looking at doing that. We're also looking at perhaps on a Facebook page, we're not too sure exactly, is providing a venue for the conversations to keep on going and having the information available for people that weren't online, just get things going and just starting conversation. Well, the downside is I'm doing all the talking. Well, thank you for allowing me to present. It's certainly a subject that I'm passionate about, and I could easily talk for. Well, the joke in my club is I'm a DTM, and I don't know if it's a worldwide euphemism, but DTM is don't time me. However, any comments that people have? And I think Carole has some closing comments, actually.
Yeah, look, we've got lots of energized thoughts happening in the text chat there. Edward's saying his mind's on overdrive now. And Brad was really interested in, the use of YouTube. So was I. I think there's some great tips. I've attempted to summarize some of the tips that you've given us today in the text chat. So I got up to tip number 6. And to answer that last little bit about, well, is there a version 2 or are we continuing? We hope so. So we'd like to know from you if that would be worthwhile for you to advertise if we prepare a series. We were thinking, Rae and I, that it could be just 1 a month. They take a bit of time to organize, and we would really like to have a selection of presenters who would share some of the stage with us as well. So would you tell us if you are interested